we're going to have a look at getting tail squirts started and right on the eddy line. This is going to be about the momentum that you use to get there, the timing of it all, the body movement, and keeping that boat moving.
We're going to look at tail squirts on moving water. Let's take that lesson that we had on flat and apply the movements to a nice eddy line like this. Before I do take the movement to an eddy line like this, I have to consider a few things. The first one is finding the perfect eddy line for it. So it's nice and sharp, pretty deep, and there's nothing behind me that's a hazard.
Whilst you're dialing this skill in, you don't need an incredibly powerful eddy line. You just need a small amount of flow just to help raise the bow up when you use the technique we've gone through on the flat water. If you do practice this on a stronger flow, the worst that can happen is that you overcook it and end up with a bit of rolling practice. When you're learning, it helps to avoid any complicated eddy lines with waves and features and steep boils. So look for a nice solid flow with a flat eddy line to help you develop your skills. Something similar to this one, or a beautiful calm one like this one.
Eddy lines can go from really wide and quite broken to being quite tight and quite powerful. The tighter that eddy line, the more chance you've got of getting that boat locked in to keep the spin and the movement happening.
The two eddy lines that Chris is going to be using to demonstrate these skills and help you work on your technique both have a very sharp eddy line at the top, which gets wider the further down flow you go. So as you'll see, Chris has been attacking this really high up to make the most of that sharp eddy line at the top of the eddy. So now that we've identified the perfect eddy line, Chris is going to go through bringing that technique from the flat into the eddy line.
To get this to work on this eddy line, I'm going to take a bit of momentum, not loads, I'm going to go quite slowly actually, up to the eddy line. As I meet the eddy line here, I'm going to keep my posture nice and tall, nice bit of wind up, little bit of upstream edge, and put a bit of pressure on that blade to get that tail squirt initiated. So, get my run up, little bit of momentum, big bit of wind up, off the edge goes.
From above, we can see the timing of the technique that we've been going through on the flat water. A key difference, however, is that we don't need to use an initiation stroke to get the turn started. By the bow simply hitting the flow will get the boat turning. As you approach the eddy line with a small amount of momentum, you want to try and hit the eddy line so that the boat is at around 90 degrees to the flow. And as soon as that bow hits the flow, you can then start to use that pressure on the back of the blade to get the boat to turn even quicker. If you've got the timing just right, the bow should be pointing downstream at the point where you're crossing that eddy line so that the back of the boat can catch the flow.
The momentum I use for a tail squirt is key. If I go with a bit too much speed, a bit too much energy, the back of the boat can slam into the water and act like a cork. So the back of the boat might ping out of the water, or it might be quite hard to control. So I'm going to go in with a gentle bit of speed so that I feel the energy of the eddy line catch the back of the boat. So, get myself lined up again. A little bit of speed. There's the catch. And I'm off.
So here Chris is demonstrating lots of speed towards the eddy line and lots of edge. Here Chris is demonstrating two common errors. So he's leaning back and he's also putting on the wrong edge. You may get the bow to lift by leaning back, but you'll probably find that it's pretty hard to control the kayak and feels a little bit wobbly as you do it. If you get your approach wrong and sweep too early, you'll end up just tail squirting like we were doing on the flat but in the eddy, and maybe hitting the bottom where it's shallow. As well as breaking into the flow to do tail squirts, you can also do a tail squirt when you break out of the flow into the eddy.
Tailie will work going into an eddy as well.
That's there we go.
So it's time to get on the water and go and find that perfect eddy line to practice your skills on. It's a lot of fun when you get the force of the water to lift the bow up into the air. In the next couple of lessons, we're going to be looking at trying to get the boat more vertical, and then we want to unlock that endless spin.